Okay, TBD Pod, welcome everybody. Today we have Chon Nguyen and Chef Ferrell Alvarez. Welcome, guys.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
So you guys own some awesome restaurants here in the Tampa Bay area. Just to name a few, Gallito Taquerias, right? Nebraska Mini Mart is a mini mart up in Seminole Heights. Rooster the Till, Ash, what else? Alter Ego. Does that cover all of them?
No.
What else?
We also have Dang Dude and Sparkman Wharf, as well as Gorditos. And then we have a secondary location of Gallito Taqueria in Lakeland as well, at the Joinery, which is a food hall down on Main Street. And then currently we're fabricating number 9 and 10, which is the second location for Dang Dude, and the third location for Gallito Taqueria in Trinity at the Escape Brewing.
And Dang Dude is more like comfort American food, right? Like
Asian street food.
Asian street food. Yeah. I think I went there in Sparkman Wharf, right? They're always switching out those concepts over there. It's kind of interesting. Every time I go back, there's like something new or something shifted around.
Yeah, we're trying to nab them up.
Yeah. So you have what, 2 or 3 over there
3
now?
currently.
3 out of how many containers do they have?
10 technically.
Damn.
Jeannie Parola with Edison and her team, they own 2, Swig-a-Majig. So one is a bar, and the
Right.
second one is a container, a food container. And then there's 8 additional.
So you're like 30% there
Yeah.
out of the 10.
Chiseling away.
Chiseling away. That area is funny too. It's almost like a restaurant incubator. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, where like you have these new concepts come in, people enjoy it, and then they move out to a brick and mortar. It's kind of a fun little deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's how kind of it originated
Yeah.
with SPP really wanting to showcase local chef talent. Marty was there for Mise en Place, Jeannie, BT, us. I'm forgetting a lot of great people. So,
Yeah.
But
Blind
that's how.
Tiger's been in and out of there.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of morphed, based on the clientele and the growth of Water Street. Things kind of change and evolve, and there's shorter leases there so that they can rotate out the restaurateurs.
It's kind of a cool thing. There really isn't anything else like that in Tampa, right?
There's one in Wesley Chapel, and I mean it's really an outdoor food hall. I think.
Yeah.
They really just wanted to activate the space prior to Water Street.
Remember the place Hall on Franklin?
Yeah.
This was what, like 2013, 14? I think they shut down maybe 18, COVID around that time.
I think it was pre-COVID, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you guys have any concepts in there at all?
No, we didn't. We were
Yeah.
approached. I think we're fortunate now we get approached for most of those concepts because I think that we do execute them rather well, but not everything is for PHG. You got to pick and choose wisely.
For sure. So how'd you guys meet? You guys have kind of an interesting story, right? You just showed up at a restaurant and the rest is history, right?
Yeah. No, I had heard about Rooster the Till and just started going in as a customer and eating oysters. Or we're doing, at the time I wasn't involved. They had a promo on oysters and Tall Boy PBRs.
Narragansett.
Yeah.
Narragansett.
That's all it took to get you in the door.
Yeah, oysters
Yeah.
and beer. And I just started hanging out and we became friends. And I always told them I'd love to be involved if there was ever an opportunity. And we did. We went to lunch one day down the street from Mini Mart and walked by the Mini Mart and just kind of dreaming, saying like, wouldn't it be cool if we did something here? And then kind of got the wheels in motion. And
That's it, man.
yeah, next
Yeah.
thing you know, partners.
I feel like the mini mart concept should come back, like the corner store in general. Like we need more of that in every neighborhood in the city.
Yeah, bodegas.
Exactly. When did you purchase, like how did that deal go down with Nebraska Mini Mart?
Well, like Chon was saying, we were friends and he was interested in, buying in if there was ever an opportunity. At that time, I had another partner. I wound up buying them out and then selling Chon equity in conjunction with our other partner, Ty Rodriguez. And we were literally eating at old Seminole Heights Bistro, and there was an 1.5 acre property. And so I'm like, hey, let's go look at this thing, and I started spitting ideas out, and he's like, oh, that would be cool. And he's like, we should do it. And I'm like,
I think we were hanging out in Miami. I think maybe a couple of weeks before. There's this place in Miami called Wood that's kind of like this outdoor space in Wynwood that we're just drinking, listening to hip hop, and there's nothing like that in Tampa. So we're trying to kind of get there with the Mini Mart.
Seminole Heights is, I guess, the closest like edgy thing we have to one of those types of neighborhoods. Like Wynwood is so the growth and the change in Wynwood is so dramatic over the last decade and a half. You go there now, it is insane. Like people day drinking in these day clubs, and then you've got these amazing food concepts and the artwork. It's so freaking cool. And you're right. Like Tampa's moving more in that direction, especially in Seminole Heights, especially more than 10 years ago. But yeah, before kind of you guys and some select places, like that's where it all went down with Seminole Heights. Yep. So Nebraska Mini Mart it's just like a bodega, right? It's just like a little.
Originally, it was a double-sided drive-through like farm store. So it had sliding glass doors on each side, and it was probably like a 700 square foot building. And then you would exit onto Nebraska. But it was attached to 2 more parcels, so it's technically 3 properties. It's about 1.3 acres.
It's a pretty good size.
Yeah, for sure. So we're trying to figure out, like Chon said, we were inspired by the concept in Wynwood. So it's like, how can we embrace the outdoor and then build onto the farm store to create a little bit of a restaurant? So that's what we did. We added like another 800 square feet building off to the side of it. And yeah, you could see there, we maintained a lot of the...
It's really good looking, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We maintained a lot of like the microphone. You order your food, we call your name over the microphone through the PA system, like you still order at the window. So we try to keep some of that old school nostalgia. We kept the original sign and just kind of refurbished it slightly, and kept the name. It was the sign on the name on the sign was Nebraska Mini Mart. So that's why we kept it in that direction. And
it looks like vintage and retro and old school. It's kind of cool. That's awesome. I'm trying to think where I was. I was in Asheville at Highland Brewery. Obviously, we don't have anything like that here. It's a 40-acre, basically complex with like food trucks and a brewery, and they've got like shuffleboard and volleyball and stuff, kind of like the Mini Mart. But yeah, that's what this reminds me of, is like a gathering place more than a restaurant. Like you'd go there with maybe your dog or your kids and hang out, get a burger and
yeah, totally
chill.
Originally, we pivoted on the food too. Originally, it was more of a like an upper, like it was street fare too, kind of global street fare, I think is what we called it. But after COVID, we pivoted to burgers and fries. But the food was more complex, I think, when we started off, and
it was
as we tried to figure it out.
Yeah, and how do you evaluate that? I mean, are you getting feedback from customers? How do you decide to make a shift like that?
On this particular concept, the shift and the idea happened during COVID because we shut down. We had to just, put everything on pause. We were ahead of the game in regards to the closure. And then at that time, we took Gallito and Nebraska Mini Mart, consolidated the menu, and sold it out of Rooster. So we created one menu that had 3 menus on it: Nebraska Mini Mart, Gallito, and Rooster, and did everything to go. And then Chon, one day, we're still paying for the property. It's just sitting there dark. And he's like, people were craving. I think at that time in COVID, and very beginning, everybody's freaking about money and economics. Everybody's holding on to their money because they don't know what's going on, and they've started to eat on the more affordable side. So burgers, he's like, dude, we should just do something with burgers and fries and see what happens. And it was a good idea because the first few months, but specifically the first weekend, was absolutely insane. And it was all of us, like even the owners, were just working in this, 200 square foot space, trying to cook burgers as fast as possible. We rented an extra 5-foot grill, put it outside. We couldn't keep up. Phones ringing off the hook. People are getting upset and pissed off and leaving us bad voicemails, but we were just trying to do something positive.
When we were like trying to figure it out, I was like, we should just do something like In-N-Out burger, and we were moving like super quick, and so we talked to the designer and asked him to put something together, and we called it NMM and out, like to kind of like remind people about In-N-Out.
Right, yeah.
And we had press like ready to help us like bring it forward, and the design came out like, and then we just pushed it to press. But I mean, it was like such a close knockoff of what it was, and so I think it was out for like 20 minutes, and their attorneys sent us a cease and desist.
That quick, 20 minutes.
Yeah, and they were like,
what do they have, like guys hawking this area?
Yeah.
Like they're on the West Coast. How do they even know?
Yeah, they found it, and then but they were super cool. I think they knew what everyone was going through, with COVID, and they just said like they were just like, can you please change it? And we said yeah, but we'd already gotten all the press. And
That is wild how quick they were on you guys like that.
Yeah.
And why do they get to dictate what someone does here in Florida? That's kind of a weird thing.
If you
right?
saw how close it was, you would understand.
Was it literally like the same logo? Everything?
Yeah, pretty much. It was intentional by us. Like we wanted to riff it as much as possible and tote the line, and we did exactly that.
Did you
But
ask them like how close can we get with you guys being okay with it?
we already had the second piece of collateral created because we knew it would happen. We didn't think it would happen so quickly, but we just pivoted. But we had already made the splash.
And we already had a plan B.
We
ready to roll.
we got so many impressions off of it, and like
It didn't matter.
it worked. Yeah.
We couldn't keep up with the business that we had at that point.
That's amazing. Burgers look insane, man. Yeah, it's that's always a treat for people when they go to the West Coast.
Yeah.
Is In and Out. What do you think a treat is when people come here? Do you think that there's a type of food or a specific restaurant chain that people look for when they come to this coast? Because I'm sure you talk to restaurateurs from around the country and have those relationships.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, me being the chef of the group, my friends are definitely, they correlate Tampa with everything corporate or a Cuban sandwich. You know, it's one of the two for them, and obviously we're growing way beyond that now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that specific subject. Like, do you think that's shifting out of a more corporate restaurant feel to like these local guys like you who have a group of your own concepts? It seems like that space is growing just from like a consumer standpoint.
Well, I think you see that with, I mean, like your audience probably is more in tune to it, but I mean, from a development standpoint too, I think a lot of the developers are being thoughtful about placemaking and making sure, like, you know, if you look at Water Street, you had Dave Bavert on. I know he talked about it, and he's a friend of ours. And I think they were really, you know, they were pretty deliberate on placemaking and making sure that there was a local representation, and it didn't feel, you know, so much chain. Obviously, you know, you have a couple down there, but I think the developers that I think understand it and are sort of building these ground up places, I think are doing a good job of getting the mix right.
Yeah, that has shifted. I feel like from a real estate investment and development standpoint in decades past, it was always about getting the national chain because they would usually pay a good lease and
Great credit,
be there, great credit, right?
Yeah.
Proven track record, that whole thing. But it seems like consumers don't care about that anymore. You know, it seems like people want a more unique feel to their neighborhood and their city. And that's Water Street. I mean, you go to Water Street, you don't really kind of know where you're at. But that's a good thing, right? You don't feel like you're in a suburbia. You don't really feel like you're in Tampa. You feel like, wow, this is a beautiful, unique place.
Yeah.
And I don't think that can be accomplished if there's like a Subway and a Five Guys. You know, you kind of need that local influence to make a place special.
But it wasn't always that way here, you know?
Oh, no.
It's nice to see that kind of changing now, and the developers curating the bottom spaces to include food and beverage and use us as an amenity for the residential or commercial above, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
I think it's hard. I mean, when you go out to the suburbs, I think you know you can't do that because you don't have the mixed use. But like Trinity, where we're going, and where I'm from, if you go out there, it's like, you know, every single chain restaurant you can imagine is in a strip mall there. You know.
So Trinity, what's going on out there?
There's a brewery that we partnered with. They're doing a food hall. They'll have a brewery on site, and then they'll have some like food stalls, like a smaller Armature Works.
Can we pull it up? Can we pull the brewery up on and show it, or is it?
Yeah, the brewery's Escape Brewing.
Okay, can you pull that up?
It's their new facility. It's still not complete yet, but I'd say that about 75% of the way there.
Cool.
And then in conjunction with the new brewing facility is the collective, is what they're calling the food hall portion of it.
Oh, amazing.
So
yeah, kind of like what I said about the Asheville spot, right? Where it's probably not 40 acres, but
It'd be a lot cooler if it was.
yeah, right. How big is the site?
Ooh, I don't know how big the site is. I would probably give them a couple acres, I think.
But sizable enough to play and bring the
there's-
kids.
Outdoor space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're going to have outdoor music. They have an outdoor like lawn, if you will, with a band shell to host music.
Oh, dude, that's a great idea. Yeah, we need that in Tampa, right? Like a food brewery venue for music to come here. That's a big, like, music scene is so big in Asheville. I wish Tampa had more culture and arts and food and music. All those things kind of seem to go hand in hand and complement each other. And it's the same people that enjoy one of those things usually enjoy all of them.
I would agree. And I think there's rumors that there's a little bit of an entertainment district coming soon in the downtown Water Street area. So that should be really cool.
That'll be amazing. So is there any sort of pictures we can see here?
I don't know.
We might be able to get you some renderings.
Because
after.
Trinity's a more suburban area, obviously.
Very
Yeah.
much.
Very, very much so. So them having this, I'm sure they're super stoked.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess send me some renderings if you guys get that far along. That'll be really cool to have. Yeah, we need more of that. Do you guys have an overall vision for the cultural component of going beyond just simply serving food? Like the base of what you guys do is create amazing food and serve it to customers, but there's almost more to it than that. There's like a shift in the way people perceive a city. When people come to a city, they don't just want to go to any random restaurant. They want to have a local experience, kind of like what we were talking about a little earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big part of our success is the culture that we've created and that we try to maintain internally. But I think that's also felt from the consumer as well, which that could also be a whole nother conversation because PHG, I think, we're a little bit more niche. We're not so ordinary or predictable in terms of the food and beverage programs that we execute and launch. And that's just our sweet spot. A lot of people, we've talked to, some of our peers and friends, and they're like, man, if you just did things that were more safe, your revenue would be bigger. And quite frankly, they're probably right. But there's a lot of those things. And for us to be who we are, I think really adds to our scene and our city. And all of our concepts are completely different from the other. Aside from Gallito and Dang Dude, now that we're replicating them, everything else is literally one-off concepts. And they're very original. They're very filled with passion of things that we think that the city needs and that we want to introduce to the city and things that we want as consumers as well. Things that we feel like there's almost like a void in a positive way. So we try to create things to go within that.
And as the chef, have you ever found a concept that you love and you think is incredible, but for some particular reason consumers aren't fond of it or the metrics don't work? Like what's something, I'm sure there's a list of things, right? In your career.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's Rooster and Ash, we are constantly, we meet relentlessly weekly. We assess and we adjust. We started, for example, Ash, we started Ash with one specific menu. And by next month, we're going to be on our 4th rendition of that menu based on the feedback of the guests. We would love things to be the way that we envision them, small plates, very eclectic, thought-provoking, progressive. But we have found that that's not necessarily what the consumer feedback is embracing from us at this moment. So our job is to constantly adjust, and their job is to keep me in check and to keep me within the rails. So that it makes sense, because if I create something and I think it's awesome, but it doesn't sell, then how good is it, right?
Yeah, there is that balance between almost like the art, right, of what you do, right? This creative aspect of culinary design, but then the financial aspect of it too. Like you guys aren't going to be in business if people aren't buying the food and enjoying the space.
That's where most of our conversations come into play. I mean, this business is unique in that if we only followed the data, we're very data driven. Like we do have metrics that we look at. We're looking at menu, how people, but so much of it comes down to, being in the restaurant, watching the guest, looking at how the guest experiences and talking to them afterwards. How are they interpreting the menu? There are like a lot more nuanced, subtle things that go into, even as we go to make a change. I mean, we like a lot of our weeks are spent talking about, what you just described is like, do we pivot? Do we change? What do we change? We want to continue to stay true to ourselves and because we are constantly bombarded with, data on what the consumer likes, right? And we can go to, a lot of restaurants and see that the chains spend a tremendous amount of money on consumer feedback and data. But we're trying to, I think, surprise and delight folks and give them something that they might not expect. And it's a hard balance. Like it's really hard.
I feel like that's the entire walk, right? On that tightrope is like balancing those two things, plus the service component. I mean, keeping track of great service is so important too. If a restaurant takes too long or the service is bad or you have a rude experience, it almost totally takes away from the quality of the food and the experience you have at that restaurant.
Experience is key, and all those things play into it. The design, the music, the temperature, the service, the food, the beverage, all of those things collectively make somebody feel a certain type of way. So we take that very serious, and I think we train really hard on that. We try to offer things in a very proper way, but without pretension. And we do feel like Rooster and Ash specifically in other cities, I think those restaurants are very normal. And it shows us our growth in a positive way as Tampa, but also the future that we have coming, because we still have some more runway, in a good way. But
That's a great thought.
Austin, Asheville, Nashville.
Right.
You eat it. The Rooster is another restaurant. In Tampa,
Totally.
It puts most people on their heels a little bit still.
Do you think that's like you said, a sign of the growth? Like, do you believe 20 years ago, all these concepts would have done well? Do you think now is the time that all of these concepts are coming out?
Well, so 20 years ago, I was cooking at Mise en Place for Marty Blitz, one of my best friends and biggest mentors in my life, as well as Marianne. So I think my answer would be possibly, because at that point, there was a fraction of the options that there are now. So maybe people would have grasped onto it quicker because there was less to choose from. That being said, 10 years ago, we opened up Rooster, and we've had it for 10 years, and it's been a hell of a run. Arguably, 10 years ago, it was better received, but maybe because it was so new, and the options were limited as well for that type of cuisine or that type of dining style or experience.
Yeah. Let's talk about that beginning. I'm sure, obviously, there's challenges today, right, in the growth of what you guys are doing with all these concepts. But the very beginning. So you've been in the business you said for 30 years, Ferrell. So how did that start off for you? What was the first restaurant you worked at, or even maybe before that? Why did you choose to take this route in your life?
Quite frankly, because my mom said, if you want a beeper and car insurance to borrow my car, you have to pay for it yourself. So I was 15 years old and I needed a full-time job. I was living in Northern Kentucky at that time, and I went to, I saw an ad for a local deli and catering company called The Cutting Board, and I went and applied. They hired me right away as a dishwasher. It's a great story too, because about 5 years ago, the owner, who still keeps in touch with me of that place, believed in me when I was 15 years old, when I felt very little people probably believed in me at that time, because I wasn't necessarily the best kid making the best choices. But Alan Strayman was the owner, and he believed in me. Full circle, he comes to Rooster on vacation and dines at my restaurant, how many years, decades later, really.
You ever asked him why he believed in you when you were so young?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked very openly about that. I was a little bit of a punk kid, a lot of it really, but I still was raised with good manners and good work ethic. So I knew how to keep my mouth shut and my nose down. So I was a good worker at 15. I was a good employee. And then I was hungry to do more. And I'm always very curious, and I like to learn things constantly. So, I was washing dishes and watching, and then I started doing vegetable prep, and then it just kept growing and growing and growing. So I was there for a couple of years, working full time throughout high school. And then the doors really started to open when I moved on from that. He helped me move on to a larger restaurant job, and it just kept compounding and compounding in my life.
Just moving up and moving on. When did you make it down to Tampa?
So I graduated high school, went directly into culinary school. At that time, dating myself, culinary school was very different than it is now. So I went for like a 16 or 18th month program, and then moved back down, moved in with my mom, who was currently living in Spring Hill. And I got a job at Saddlebrook Resort. And I was like 19 years old, and I've been back in Tampa ever since then. Wow. And I'll be 46 next Friday.
Man. So when did you open the first restaurant?
We opened up Rooster the Till in 2013. Yep, December 16th of 2013.
So,
in our
11.
Just celebrated 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Boy, that's quite a leap, though. And there was a lot of time in between you moving down full time at 19 and when you opened up Rooster the Till. What did so how did you get the idea? I mean, I'm sure you always wanted to open up your own restaurant. Yeah. Obviously, right? That was probably the ambition. But what made you pull that trigger?
I was the executive chef of a local restaurant, and Ty, our partner, and he was the general manager of that same restaurant. The owner started going through some personal challenges with divorce and things like that. And I think the economic pressure for them, they wound up firing Ty and I. So the first time ever in our lives, we both were fired. Ty was fired 6 months before me, but Ty was already acting as the executive director for Gasparilla Music Festival. Both of us were single fathers, and so Ty already had income, and I was left for a couple days feeling pretty frustrated and scared. And then, typical situation with me, I just, had to figure it out. I started sketching, ideas on paper, and I said, we got to try to do something ourselves here. So I made a few phone calls. I borrowed some money from a few friends and family on some promissory notes. I had no idea what I was doing in retrospect, but it worked out. I think my naiveness kind of overshadowed my fear. So it just
about doing your own thing, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
couldn't you have you could have applied for different restaurants, for different positions, take a management role of some sort if you wanted to, or keep doing the chef deal. Like,
I think that's where my creative brain came into play, where I just wanted to do my own thing. I have my own vision, or I thought at that point I had my own vision. And I've always been humble in the sense where, like, I'm always willing to work for other people. But at that time, I just felt it was like I wanted to introduce something new to Tampa Bay and show them what I thought a restaurant could be. So it really just kind of worked out harmoniously. In a week, I got that money. I called Ty and I was like, hey, I think we can do this, Wow. And
it's a bold move, man.
Yeah, it was really bold, and again, pretty naive in retrospect, but I guess it was meant to be, because it worked out really well. We opened the doors. We were on 3-hour waits when we were 34 seats in the very first iteration of the restaurant. We had no hood system. We had no gas. We had 3 induction burners, a convection oven, and 2 sous vide circulators. We had a full menu. We worked really, really, really hard, and we had an amazing team and chef and friends that completely just supported us and helped us, and family. Like, you couldn't do it that way again right now if you tried, mostly because the city is privy to all the illegal things that we were trying to pull off at that time with, no hood system and whatnot. But as soon as we made money, we put in a hood system. As soon as we made a little bit more money, added more air conditioning.
Immediately reinvested, always.
Constantly. And then within like the first 10 months, the landlord said that the lady next door was moving out of her space, and he asked if we were interested in acquiring that space. So we did, and we sat on it for a little bit while we started to continue to stack our money, really. And then we were able to hire an architect and a real contractor and design 3 versions of what you see now, because we've remodeled it like 2 or 3 times since then.
And Chon, you came into the picture a few years in, right?
Yep.
Just as a guy at the bar, having a PBR and some oysters.
At the bar, yeah. And I showed him our software, and he is my friend is very particular about labeling, and so part of it is like food safety labeling, and so we started using it at Rooster, and we just became friends.
Just built that relationship, and then you officially joined the business soon after that.
Yep, Mini Mart first, and then the opportunity came to get involved with Rooster, and then everything else we've all done together.
That's amazing. So when did you start? So you expanded Rooster and Till, right, in that next door space. When did you do now you have you guys are gearing up for your 10th, right? 9 and 10.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When did you do number 2? That was the Mini Mart, correct?
Yeah, I think
was the
around
second
6 years.
Well, yeah, we're celebrating our 6-year anniversary. So we've
Wow.
had Mini Mart for 6 years now.
What made you make that jump on Mini Mart? It was the story you were talking about before, where the opportunity came up with the real estate. You thought, hey, that's kind of an interesting deal. How do we turn this into something special?
Yeah, we thought it was something that could be really cool for Seminole Heights and for Tampa. We were hot off the inspiration from Wynwood, and the space was obtainable for us. We thought we had a good vision for it. That area too was super dilapidated. I mean, 6 years ago, the corner of Osborne and Nebraska certainly wasn't what it is now.
No,
there was literally,
There were no
needles.
$600,000 townhomes at that time.
No, not at all. And now the ones that are north of us are sold out. So, there was needles on the property, and it was a mess. And that's PHG. I think we got a little bit of grit to us, and we're not scared to make those harder calls and fill those voids. And quite frankly, just like Rooster, I picked the real estate for Rooster because it's all we could afford. It was 1,100 square foot white box, and it was nothing special, and we built it out with our bare hands. Quite frankly, literally, I mean, buying things off Etsy, taking down torn fences, and making a wood reclaimed wall when reclaimed wood and Edison bulbs were all the rage. So, we just worked really, really hard, and we were relentless, and it got us to this point.
That vision too, when you're in Wynwood, was it just you guys thinking about, hey, this would do well in Tampa? Like, was it that simple? Or like, how deep into your vision could you get? And the reason I ask is, you brought it up, right? Like on the east side of 275, I mean, the crime, the city was so, people that have just moved here in the last few years don't understand. Tampa was a lot worse off, like in the 90s and even 10, 15 years ago. And no one would touch that area. Real estate developers didn't want to touch it. Business owners didn't want to bring concepts into that neighborhood. A lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of negativity around that neighborhood. How did you make that jump, man? I feel like that's such a huge pinch point for so many people. You believed in it that much?
Yeah, I believe so. I think that I would love to say that we're like visionaries, but it's not that. It's just we're not going to go to the most popular hoity-toity area and get the guaranteed money. There's nothing wrong with that. And quite honestly, it would probably be more beneficial to us from a financial perspective, but that's not, we don't do this solely for money. Of course, we need money for everything to go, but we don't chase money. We're not Rolex wearers. We don't ride Bentleys and stuff like that. It's just not who we are. We're not flashy people. And we also like to find the diamonds that need to be a little bit polished.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. The reason I'm asking is it's just awesome that you did that. I mean, without you and other people like you guys having that vision for a neighborhood that's needs a little help, who the hell would do it, man? I mean, the city turned their back on it for a long time. Some of the public investment, nothing was happening. It's just amazing that you went into a neighborhood that was so far away from where it should have been and turned it into something nice, But you also had experience at Rooster the Till, right? And that's in the same general area. So you probably had an idea of who was living there, who the neighbors were, right? You kind of knew the vibe.
Definitely. And I think it's kind of a testament to who we are as people and how we were raised too. We weren't raised with wealthy families. We weren't given money to do this. Like we essentially are self-made. Chon and I both haven't gone to college. Ty has a master's degree, so he's the one with the brains.
He makes up for it.
Yeah, he balances.
Good enough for all of us.
Yeah. But it's kind of, it fits the story of who we are just as human beings, and taking that risk on Seminole Heights in Tampa. Of course, it's a financial risk,
for sure.
We didn't view it like that at all. And if everybody had that mentality of like, oh, that's a really scary area and we probably shouldn't do it there, then nothing would ever evolve.
Right.
Exactly. So you have to give people and spaces and places opportunities and chances. And I think that's something we're not scared to do. We've done it over and over again. We'll continue to do that probably over and over again. And we're still growing, and we're not at the same pace, but we're not stopping anytime soon.
Let's talk about the vision. We can. I do want to talk about these concepts specifically, but since you brought up that kind of future thinking, what is the vision for your group? I mean, continue to work in Tampa, open more concepts, go over to St. Pete, down to Sarasota, across the state, Southeast, regional. What are we thinking?
It's all for sale, and we're bailing. No.
And then you'll get the Bentley, right?
Yeah, no, not at all, man. Just travel, experiences over things.
I love that. Yeah,
we're still continuing to grow. We're still talking with a couple developers right now, and we have some things in the hopper. I think that as we grow as a restaurant group, we continue to get a little bit more mature. We are a little bit more concise on when we pull the trigger, and we have been fortunate to create a name for ourselves, and people are approaching us now to kind of fill these voids with the developers and some of these sweetheart deals and curating for the spaces above. So that's kind of our niche and what excites us. We want to continue to be a part of the development in Tampa. We've been here since, he was born and raised here, and I've been here for over 30 years. So we're definitely through and through Tampa boys.
You believe in the city too, it sounds like both of you really want to see us thrive.
Oh man, we've been here forever, and we're definitely, literally and figuratively, heavily invested in the city.
Oh yeah, man. Well, to watch all of it happen, like I have all these renderings up here of some of these new developments. That's a couple years old, but to watch just in the last few years what's happened to this city, the new restaurants and the new people that are here. the visitors, the hotel concepts that are coming. It's kind of amazing to see, and to be a part of it is so exciting. So that sounds like that's what fuels you guys, is like you maybe, you know, in New York City it's so competitive, or some of these other larger markets, I feel like very hard to do what you guys do, right? If you were tomorrow to open up a place, like you said, in a saturated Austin, you know, maybe that's a lot more difficult than creating something here in Tampa new. But how much more cooler is it to do it here?
Yeah,
Right?
definitely. As our own community, it's definitely cooler. Although it might be cheaper now in Austin,
I know they've had some,
because real estate is getting crazy. So
yeah, they had a bubble, you know.
absolutely. But yeah, it's what we do. It's what we love, and we don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
And then Chon, for you, like you have an IT background, right? And I'm reading something about how you started your first company at 16 years old.
Yeah. My background is in IT, very boring, not as exciting as this business, but we do a lot of technology and IT and audio video for the hospitality space. So we have customers all over town, all over the country. A lot of chain restaurants we work with, but we're doing all of their network infrastructure, wireless infrastructure, and audio video. But you know, part of getting involved here too was kind of spending so much time around the chain restaurants and seeing how they, you know, grow and scale, and then seeing what they do was a lot more. I don't want to say it was a lot more unique, right? I mean, like there was a lot of soul in what they were doing, and so that's just interesting, and you're like sort of drawn to it, you know, when you can feel that passion in something, and so I was excited to get involved with them.
It's kind of a jump, right? I mean, owning one restaurant, just from a management and like technology standpoint, right? Chain restaurants have a formula. Like you walk into any McDonald's, it's the same thing all over the world.
Rinse and repeat.
Right, rinse and repeat. How that is accomplished is probably the answer to some of what you guys are doing, right? Not on that level, obviously, but like when you're replicating something and making sure like Dang Dude has, boom, two of the same things in two different locations. Yeah. That's probably where you come in, Chon, right? Is with those systems.
That's what my software does. That's what we do for chain restaurants. But being around it too, I mean, and working in the IT, I was fortunate enough to be close to like their accounting departments and systems, and you know, when I started, I opened like 50 chain restaurants myself. Like I flew out there myself to install the point of sale and technology. So I'd be at the openings and kind of saw how they systematize things. I would say we strike a very healthy balance between, you know, putting processes and things into place, but not, you know, staying true to ourselves and making sure we don't. But, you know, obviously the size we are now with over 100 people, we have HR, we have onboarding platform, we have scheduling software, we have, you know, all the way down. But our team has grown as well. So I think that has been great for us too. We've been able to provide opportunities for people that have worked with us for a very long time. It's, you know, growth is not, we've learned a lot along the way, I think.
Yeah. Do you have people that have been with you since the 10 years ago at Rooster and Till?
Wow. Absolutely. Yeah. Most importantly, Myles Gallagher. Like PHG doesn't exist every day without Myles. I don't know if that's bad to say because now he's going to pin us in a corner.
He's coming for a raise.
You said,
yeah. So, long story short, you know, Myles was a friend of mine from me hanging out at the Bricks. He was a manager there 11, 12 years ago. And I was like, oh, one day, I just loved his energy. He's just a great person, you know, great human being that you just wanted to be around. So fast forward, we go to open up Rooster. I'm like, hey, you want to work with us? He's like, yep. So then he comes to work. I'm like, you're the manager. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. And then fast forward 11 years later now, he's director of operations for all of PHG. And he's also an equity partner in Ash and Alter Ego. Wow. So, yeah.
He's in charge of those 100 people and figuring out, I mean, that would be everything, right? From the scheduling of all these workers to what food orders and
we have a couple layers too.
Yeah, definitely
I'm
layers.
sure, yeah.
Another major person in our company is Mike Reams. He's our director of operations for fast casual space. So he oversees all fast casuals, Below him is a director of culinary, and below director of culinary at every unit is a general manager. So they handle the day-to-day operations in regards to ordering, inventories, and daily sales. And then everything trickles up to Mike. And Myles oversees Mike as well as the full-service restaurants. But again, the full-service restaurants also have general managers, assistant general managers, and executive chefs that are running the day-to-day operations as well.
Getting those different positions, right? Structuring the company in that way. Is that something that came from you, Chef? Probably not, right? I mean,
I would say Chon is most responsible for kind of our leadership development. I think that's one of his strong suits. The four of us, Ty, Myles, and the two of us are, humbly said, like strong leaders.
Right.
We're very focused. We're very approachable. I think we're very kind in our leadership ways. But Chon just has a different, he's always doing continuing education with CEO development groups and things like that. So he really provides us really great insight. We all do read a lot and watch a lot of podcasts and do all that thing. But I think he's the main catalyst to kind of give us that structure. But we've made plenty of mistakes, and it sounds really professional. Like, this sounds really great, and I feel really proud of PHG. But when you're in the inside of it, it's like we're still trying to figure things out. Behind the curtain, there's a little bit of a circus behind everybody's curtain. But we're not scared to make decisions. We're not scared to make the wrong decisions, and quite frankly, that makes us better. And we can choose whatever we want. So we collectively sit down weekly. We make a decision. We execute it. We assess it, and then we adjust it.
I mean, not being afraid to make decisions sounds like your entire ideology when it comes to these concepts, like from the very beginning. I mean, opening up a restaurant, no hood, you're building the thing out yourself, like the grit and the grind, man, from the bottom to the top. It's kind of wild to hear this story. So let's talk about the concepts specifically. So we kind of talked about Rooster the Till, right? Nebraska Mini Mart, and then what was your first concept at Sparkman Wharf?
That was Gallito Taqueria.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Place is awesome. What made you, was Sparkman Wharf, when that development was proposed, was that something you guys wanted to be a part of? Or how did that relationship work out?
Yeah, I think they approached a lot of local operators. Thankfully, we were one of them. I think at that time there were some other opportunities that we had passed on around town too. But this felt really good. I mean, there was a lot of attention on that district. We had I'd grown up going down to the old Channel side, and so it was really cool to kind of be part of the revitalization of that area. And they sold the vision really well. I mean, I don't know if you've been to their offices and seen that.
It's unbelievable.
That 360, model, but they make a great case, and they've been great partners ever since. That's why we continue to work with them, and so it's been good.
Super novel concept too, with the shipping containers. Kind of an interesting deal.
Yeah, and it's really cool, and it's come full circle because Pep Rally, a graphic design studio here locally, now they're really great friends of ours, but we work hand in hand with them every day for everything graphic, collectively with all of our restaurants. But they were the ones responsible for designing and painting the containers as well. So it kind of came full circle.
It's cool, man. It goes back to that unique, conversation and space, what we were talking about earlier, where, when you visit Tampa and you go to Sparkman Wharf, it's cool, man. Like that, people love that shit. Like, you want to be a part of something that's different. I'm going on a trip to Europe in a few weeks. I'll be gone like all of October. Super fortunate. I got like a cousin's wedding. We're gonna hit Italy. Why not? You're all the way over there, right? But when you come back to America, I've been fortunate enough to travel a lot. So when you come back, it's like there's a slight disappointment when you're driving in the suburbs. And it's
Go ahead and expand on it. We talk about this all the time. We both have been.
Dude, it's like everywhere looks the same, bro. Whether you're in Nebraska, Florida, Massachusetts, like you name it, it's just these highways and these fast food concepts that are the same everywhere. It sucks, man.
Transportation. I mean, it's
Yeah, don't get us started.
Yeah. Let's get started.
He just came back from Switzerland. I was in the Netherlands and Denmark recently.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Like, you come back and you're so revitalized from that, but then you come back and it is kind of a disappointment to a certain extent. But it's, as my friend tries to help me daily, it's really important to kind of take that and put it into a positive category so we can make some change here.
Yeah.
And impact our community and do what we can locally. For us to move to Switzerland or the Netherlands right now is really, really mentally attractive, but it's just not in the cards.
And I should say too, like, I love America, and when I land and I go through customs, there's a sense of pride. I'm so happy to be back. You know what I'm saying though,
Absolutely.
right? And here's kind of the kicker: we don't have to live this way.
You can take the best. Like, there's no reason why we shouldn't look at that and look to improve. I think
We have an opportunity unique to this city, changing some of the land use codes. And we already talked about too, in the private sector, developers like wanting to make these changes and wanting to have these unique concepts and having more walkability. Like 20 years ago, if they had developed Water Street, it would have looked completely different. Like you even brought up, like the old Channel Side development was built in this like suburban-esque weird feel. Can you pull up, just type old Channel Side development or old Channel Side? Have you seen
Howl
it?
at the Moon.
You know about it. Yeah, you've been here a
Banana
while.
Joe's. Type in Banana Joe's.
Stump Supper Club. Remember that spot?
Oh yeah.
That was a cool place.
And ironically enough, we hire people out of state to develop it and to design it. Of Place has a heavy hand in that. Handsome George Mosley was responsible for us getting into Gallito first and foremost.
Bro, look at this. Blow this picture up on the right, Tyler.
Look at that.
You're going to build a waterfront development in Florida and close off the water. Stupid.
Suburban sexy.
Makes no sense. I'm glad they tore that building down and opened it up. Should have been that way all along. But I guess my point is, like, we don't have to live this way. And I think the younger people in this country, my generation and even people older than me, want a change. We do want a change. We want more of everything we're talking about. I don't think most people who live in the city want to be stuck in a car going to drive-throughs. Like, dude, I want a local coffee shop I can walk to. I want a little mini mart I can go get some goods at. I want a corner store. I think that's more popular than ever. And the interesting thing about Tampa is, on September 16th, here in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about changing the code. It hasn't been updated since 1987.
Yeah.
And there's a chance to add in certain things that wouldn't dramatically impact the neighborhoods in this community to make those people feel like they're losing what they have. But there are certain things like parking requirements and street level requirements. And, as an example, like Nebraska Mini Mart, right? That's a tricky site. It doesn't fit in a certain box. The city should have a way to deal with certain specific, whether it's like an old warehouse or a rundown old building, and a guy comes in or a woman comes in and wants to make it cool. The city should have a process outside of the box to allow them to do things like Sparkman Wharf or Nebraska Mini Mart or all these other cool things.
Do you think we're going to get there quickly as a city?
I think this is what's on the table. September 16th is the first meeting. I'll be on that board, and I'm super excited to give my opinion on all these different things. It's going to take 2 years to get the studies done. They're going to be the city's going to be talking with people around the country. You want to see what works and what doesn't work. Where did Nashville screw up? What did Austin do right? I believe that, yes, with the proper conversations and the right people, we can make positive changes within 3 years and be able to have some new developments that make sense for a city and don't feel suburban within an urban core. That's the number one thing that I see as the issue, is we almost have this like suburban-esque code and suburban rules for a city. Like, Tampa's becoming a real city. The demand is there. People from all over the country from larger metros are moving here. They want that walkable lifestyle. We can't provide it because our code is all screwed up. So yeah, I think pretty quickly we could make some changes within a few years.
I like that. I like the positivity. I believe so too. I think the walkability thing is huge. Like, that's one thing that
It'll change your life. I mean, like, it changes your lifestyle.
It's the whole reason we're obese. I mean, truthfully, that's why Europeans are not. I mean, they're walking everywhere and they're getting these fresh food concepts. In America, unfortunately, a lot of people are forced to be in their car to go get goods and services. Like, I live south of Gandy. There's really nowhere I can walk that's reasonable to get literally anything.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we allow in the right particular places, like on Inner Bay and Bayshore Boulevard, for example, why wouldn't you be able to build an up to the street little bodega and maybe slide on some of the parking to incentivize and allow people from the neighborhood to walk and bike?
Yeah.
Makes no sense why that would be literally illegal in Tampa. Like I have a good example too. Can you pull up a Google map, Tyler? I'm sorry, Tyler. David's doing the first episode here. We've had Tyler in here for 80 episodes. David's filling in. But there's this little building I was looking at, and you guys maybe even know about it. So go west, David. Go to Hyde Park. David also lives in where? Northport? Northport. Yeah, so maybe you're not familiar with Tampa. So keep going a little west, go south. At least you know your north, south, east, west. Never eat soggy waffles, David. Okay, go southwest, go to the Village. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because this is the perfect space to do a concept like I'm talking about, but the current zoning would make it illegal. So you see where the streets shift, David, on the bottom left? Kind of go to that area. Okay. Oh, where the hell are we here? That's Howard, Rome. So go to Rome. Where the hell is this place? Zoom out real quick. Oh no, it's on so see the little triangle on the left, David? There's like a triangle. Yeah, zoom in right there. So that's like Fresh Kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
RIP, by the way. That's really unfortunate they had that fire. Yeah. So here. Right here. That, can you street view that? So
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you might know this building, man.
Isn't that over on Hills?
Yeah.
Yep.
Dude, I wanted to buy this. But then like you evaluate it as from a real estate investment standpoint and a development standpoint, and you're like, okay, it doesn't meet the parking code. It's zoned multifamily. Is this the right spot?
And I think I know you're talking about over by Hills, but down the road by the old ceviche where.
Yeah, man. I think it placed you in a different spot.
But you're right, like the parking codes and things like that bury people with, unless you have a ton of money to just weather the storm. I mean, it happened to us twice with Rooster and with Nebraska Mini Mart, and not everybody has the financial ability to just build another parking lot on the property next door and obtain that.
Here, zoom out, David. We're in the general area. We'll find it in a second. But yeah, exactly, man. Like whether it's Hyde Park or Seminole Heights, why not let that investor or developer take that risk? If no one shows up because they can't park, that's our bad, right? Hyde Park is the perfect neighborhood for walking, and so is Seminole Heights. Yep. I guarantee the people in Seminole Heights would love to have a spot where they could walk to and rather not drive. Like, I think people would actually prefer to do a 10-minute walk to a concept rather than drive and sit in traffic. Where it's at the end of the larger triangle. We've spent like an hour on this already. So zoom in. You see the triangle where those roads intersect on the top. Yeah, right there. Yeah, so this thing was for sale. It was just under $1 million. I believe at one point it was an old grocery store back when the corner store was a big deal. So this is zoned multifamily. I think the future land use was also multifamily, but it was the brick building. So my idea was like, well, you approach the owner right there, and get the one on the left, pick up the brick building. How fantastic is this? I think it's grandfathered basically for an office. But the reason you can't get any sort of concept like anything we're talking about is the parking issue. There's no parking. But my argument is, look at all the people that live around you that would totally enjoy a little coffee shop with some croissants and little sandwiches and stuff like that. In my opinion, that's what the city needs. Like, overarchingly, there's so many things we need as a city. Obviously, there's concerns about public safety, and you got all these events and the roads and the potholes. But I think one thing that would greatly benefit us is shifting the code around to allow for special circumstances just like that to bring back the corner store.
Totally agree.
Yeah, man.
If our landlord at Rooster hadn't put up, I think it was 80 or 100,000 and developed the property just north of us on the fly to be a parking lot and to meet the calculations, we wouldn't have been able to open.
Wow.
Yeah, literally. And because the state owns Florida Avenue, so it's not part of the city. All the parking in front of our building which we have. I think we have almost 13 spots that go around. None of them qualify.
They don't count.
Yeah, they're in the right of way for Florida Avenue, which is a federal highway, so they don't count. So then they're like, oh, you have to have, I think it was 8 parking spots and 1 ADA.
So you guys got lucky.
Super
Basically.
lucky.
Yeah.
Yep, super lucky.
The younger generation gives me hope as long as they vote. But I think I do feel I'm on the board of the Economic Development Council too, and you know, as we look to recruit businesses here, it's transportation and education, and so I would like to see more political will and maybe even more from the business community to focus on those 2 issues aggressively. But we had the all for transportation tax that was a mess. The millage that we're trying to get passed for Hillsborough County Public Schools now has been a challenge with the county commissioners. For us to flourish and really go to be that next great city, I think we have to really focus on what our priorities are going to be collectively, and make sure that we're focused on the things that matter and really improve the quality of life for everyone.
Well, the teacher thing is an interesting one. We lose so many good people that go across the bridge.
Have you had Van Ayers on, that superintendent on?
No, but I need to reach out
Before November.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it is.
Well, it's like people talk so much about teacher pay. We need to pay our teachers more. Okay, Here's an opportunity right in front of us to do that. I think Pasco pays more, like every county around
surrounding
us.
county,
Like I think literally every surrounding county
we're the
pays
only one.
more. So there's like great people that live in Hillsborough that want to teach, but then they drive across to Pinellas to go make 10 grand more a year.
Right.
How can you blame them? You can't.
Imagine putting $10,000 more in a teacher's pocket. They'd be able to go out to eat more. They'd be able to, and do what they want to do.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And a lot of these taxes, like the community investment tax that's coming up, that's another thing that has to pass.
Yeah.
There's things within that budget that we are obligated to pay, right, as a city.
Yep.
So part of that tax provides for that. I think 30% of the revenue generated by that tax is tourism,
Yep.
right? People visiting here. So it's like free money. So if we don't pass that, where the hell is the money going to come from?
Yep. And I recognize that it's a very, it's tough for a lot of people out there, but, we are a growing city. And if we want nice things and want to continue to grow, those are some things that I think, have to be considered. So
Absolutely. The community investment tax would be essentially the same thing we've been doing, I think, for the last 30 years. So that really is not an additional tax. The teacher deal, I believe, would be an additional tax, but completely necessary.
Yep.
We need to pay teachers more.
Yeah.
Because education is so important to economic development. You're not going to get any businesses wanting to move here. You're not going to get any people, for that matter, wanting to move here if we don't have a good school system.
Yep. It's the 2 biggest, that's like the 2 bigged priorities for businesses when they're evaluating us.
I had Brad Meltzer on. He's developing the Pendry and a lot of other things around the area, and they've got stuff in the Bahamas. And I was like, what's the one thing you guys look at in a market? Or what are these larger business owners looking at when they look at a region? He's like, schools, man.
Yep.
Like if their executives don't have a place to put their kids through school in a great way, they're not interested in that market. And so I wonder, we pay our teachers here in Hillsborough less than every surrounding county. What has that costed us?
Yeah.
What is the negative effect of not paying these teachers for how many years we haven't paid them?
Yep.
How many businesses have we lost?
You got to get Van in here before November.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're getting all fired up.
Van,
Now we're talking
come
about
through.
restaurants and
Well, dude, in kind of an interesting way, it's like I said, it's more than the food, man. Like it's, you guys are a part of the community as much as any other business, right? Whether or not you're serving food.
It's all connected.
So your interest in having a great city to play in and to do your business in, you worry about that just as much as anyone else.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is your fight as much as it is anyone's. And you're right, like the voters, I think the city of Tampa's turnout, like 70 or more percent don't vote.
Yeah.
70
the
or more
primary,
percent.
Yeah, I forget what the primary
It's
number was.
atrocious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to solve for that. I think,
You got a great platform here. I think you're doing good work.
Yeah, I guess-
educating people. So
well, maybe it's a small part, but I think that the political conversations have sucked so much air out of the room, especially national politics,
Yeah.
that people feel like there's they're almost exhausted to talk about local issues because of national issues and international issues. That's unfortunate. I hope something good that could come out of the national clown show that's happening is maybe people realize that local politics are almost more important than federal politics.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
100%.
I mean, we need better roads and schools, and all that's local government. You know, the federal government helps, you know, but that's not the base of the money and the workers, the people that, the sanitation workers, the water department, like, bro, that's all local stuff.
Yep.
You know, maybe more people should realize that.
Got to educate them.
Yeah.
How to educate them in some way. Yeah, I need to get. Is it a her or him? What's the name?
Van Ayers. It's a him. Yeah.
Van Ayers. Yeah.
He's been he grew up. I mean, he went to Hillsborough School. He's taught here. He will be an excellent guest.
The problem is convincing people to pay for things that they don't feel like affects them or that they will use.
Yeah.
So the same deal with, like, you know, that's why offered transportation kind of went under. It was basically semantics. Like, oh, the wording wasn't correct, and that's why that didn't work. But think about it. We chose to tax ourselves for transportation. And a lot of the money, again, was from tourism, and it collected a ton of money, like $500 million.
Yep.
And now that money's sitting in Tallahassee. And the guy that ruined the whole thing moved to, like, Alabama or something like that. Yeah. Like, he doesn't even live there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are we doing? So I think we, you know, back to the growth conversation, right? We have such a great opportunity. We live in such an amazing city. We have awesome history and cool people. But boy, we need to figure out some of these foundational things to grow. Because the growth part, I believe, will happen no matter what choices we make.
Yeah.
Like, whether or not we vote to pay our teachers more, cool, dude, 1,000 more people are going to move here tomorrow. So, you know, what position are we putting ourselves in by not paying teachers more, not funding all for transportation, like not extending the streetcar, not fixing the roads? We'll add 50 more thousand people in the next decade. Now, how far behind are we?
Yep.
That's a massive issue, and an issue that affects everyone, including you guys. Absolutely, you guys.
Yeah.
Definitely us. Yeah. It'll have a ripple effect, but I do feel hopeful that, you know, as we continue to grow as a city, people become more educated on this and become more involved and start to make decisions that better everything, not just for themselves.
Yeah. I hope things change. I believe they will. I think there's enough young people that give a shit that will make a change in the city. I'm really hopeful. I mean, I talked to so many passionate people about Tampa through the show, and even offline, people wanting to get coffee that are involved in things that, you know, maybe they don't want to be on air, but they get it. You know, they're champions of this city. It seems like it's all across the board. You know, people that control the aquarium to the convention center to the private to the government sector. Like, we do have a really good population of people that really care about Tampa. It's just a matter of convincing the masses and getting more than 30% voter turnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
That's the very hard part. Let's talk about Alter Ego. Place is so cool. Can we pull that up, David? Place is unbelievable. And it's supposed to play off of Ash, correct? In terms of design.
In regards to design, yeah. Hence Alter Ego. I think we pulled most of the deepest colors from the design of Ash. Ash is very light, bright, very feminine. Alter Ego, as you can see, is very dark, intimate.
Bro, I feel like I'm in LA or something.
Not a single window.
So cool, man. Now, what made you create this concept? Where was the motivation?
We were offered the additional space, and we thought about adding it to Ash. But then we pivoted and created a concept that we wanted to hang out at. It's a very small space. I think that's maybe one of the biggest misconceptions if somebody hasn't been there yet. It's just under 2,000 square feet total, you know, including the restrooms. So if it seats 50 people, and then we have the capabilities of letting about an additional 20 people in for standing room only. But yeah, we wanted to have something that showcased really great cocktails, a really, really cool, chill environment where you can just be yourself. If you want to dress all fancy, come on down. And if you want to be yourself and wear a t-shirt, pair of shorts, come on down. And then the music component of it, we're all very heavily invested in music in regards to interest. So Justin Lehman, a.k.a. DJ Casper, has been a friend of mine and ours for just about a decade now. So brought him on as a full-time music director and started curating some different DJs and musicians to bring in. So Thursday through Sunday, we always have a live DJ playing, but we're starting to activate Tuesdays and Wednesdays as well, doing industry night on every Sunday. And we play everything. You'll hear everything in there, from the Bee Gees to Biggie to Steely Dan to some house music. So we definitely mix it up. Casper's responsible for putting together a really great lineup, and I think he knocks it out of the park.
And it's food and beverage?
Yeah, so we have a food menu, small, I was going to say snack program, but it's much larger than a snack program. You know, we have
light bites type thing.
Pork katsu sandwich. We have caviar service. We have foie gras toasts. We have arancinis. We got some like cool homemade Chex Mix. There's definitely some light bites and some sweet items on the menu that are served till 11 p.m. And then after 11, most of the time we're open till 2 on the weekends, 1 o'clock if not. And then it's just, at that point, it's more of a lounge.
Lounge, yes.
Yeah, a little bit more crowded, higher energy, vibey scene. Some people are dancing, some people are sitting and chilling, but nonetheless, 70 people or less.
That's a concept that I've been excited about, kind of that lounge space. Like to me, Gin Joint started off with that a few years ago, like that kind of more, I don't want to say adult, right? Every person drinking alcohol is an adult, but you know, maybe an older crowd versus somewhere on Howard or whatever, right? Like some place maybe after dinner, get a cocktail, hang out, get another little snack, you know. That is, I think, very needed in Tampa. How are you seeing patrons use it? Like a pre-dinner thing, meet up after dinner?
They're surprising us, yeah.
It's so many different things. Yeah. It's really like alter ego could not have been the better name for that concept. Because, you know, I'm sure Sean's getting ready to say the same thing, but we open up at 6. So from 6 to 9, it's kind of one concept. And from like 9 to 11, it's a little bit of a different one. And then from 11 to 2, it's different, you know, and it's just like organically transcends throughout the night. But our beverage program, led by John Howard, is really top notch. We're constantly adjusting that as well and listening to the customers. But yeah, I mean, it's multifaceted.
Were you expecting that when y'all opened?
I think we knew it was going to be well received just because of the space. And then, like Ferrell said, like I feel like, you know, we're always tweaking things and you know, the consumer will tell you too, you know, so, how they want to use the space. And so we're being, you know, careful to listen to them and adjust. But, you know, to me, as the night gets later, you know, just gets darker and more fun. It's
yeah, absolutely.
Such a cool location too. You know, were you guys pretty excited to be in Water Street?
Yeah, very much
with
so.
Ash and Alter Ego,
Yeah. I mean, for myself, I never thought that we would be in a position to open something down there,
right,
let alone 2 concepts at the same time. So it's very humbling. It's very eye-opening. It's a very different demographic than we're used to.
Eye-opening of what's possible for your group.
I mean,
multifaceted.
I'm speaking for myself. I mean, like opening night, I feel like, you know, our family was there, and I don't know, when you walk out the door and you're like looking at Amalie Arena, I mean, I didn't ever think when we were sitting in Rooster that we would have, you know, that real estate or opportunity for me. So
I totally agree. I mean, it's overwhelming sometimes in a positive way. You know, you walk outside and you're just like, wow.
Right.
And it's definitely the biggest thing we've ever done. You know, when we occupied that space, it was a dirt floor and 22-foot ceilings, and we brought it to fruition all the way.
Not even a shell, dirt. Wow. So you guys did everything from foundation all the way up. So that was really, I mean, Myles and I are heavily invested in the construction and design aspect of things in our group, and we really enjoy it. So going through that process and continuing to learn more was really eye-opening, really educational. Working with Gin Design Group out of Houston, Texas. Wow, you designed this in-house along with a design group.
Yeah. With Gin, I mean, Gin Design.
They did some heavy lifting.
She drove the bus, but no, we were definitely involved. As you can imagine, we're a little bit opinionated. So, we definitely were. We kept our finger on the pulse, but we let Gin drive the bus because that's her specialty, and I think we're good at that. You know, we all have our different lanes, so to speak, but we all coincide. But when it comes down to it, collectively, our individual strengths is what make us good.
And that vibe, that like dark, moody vibe, is that something she came to you with, or you kind of initially said, hey, let's do something?
Yeah, I think we did.
We
Yeah.
started with the name. I mean, the name I think was.
We had the vision for it, the curvature, the architecture, things like that.
It's super unique. It almost looks like cyberpunk or like a future city neon type thing.
Yeah. Well, I really have like this weird thing about me where I despise having like the same thing or as everybody else. I annoy Sean with it all the time. But whether it's like sneakers or clothes or restaurants or cars, I just think there's so many cool things out there that it really bothers me to see people just emulate one another and have the same old stuff. So that being said, we had a vision for Alter Ego, and it was very much this. Gin definitely took it to the next level for us, but we wanted it to be a little bit like Boiler Room meets Cocktail Lounge. We wish people were a little bit more down to dance and kind of vibe, but I think we'll get there as we come into season. And a lot of the young kids came to us in the beginning. I think they thought it was going to be more of a club, and I think some of them were disappointed by the size. And because we keep it more grown in regards to the energy.
Right.
Obviously, after midnight, it ramps up a little bit before close, but again, 70 people. It's only going to get so wild in there.
Right. Yeah. Almost Goodnight John Boy in St. Pete.
Yeah.
Obviously very different from this, but the age, right? It's a little older. People want to go there and have cocktails and dance versus I think younger people in college want to have plastic cups and really mingle and have this. It's just a different energy.
Goodnight John Boy. What I like about that though is that it you see young people and old people in there together, right? To me, that's like people coming together because they want a good time and they want to hear great music. I mean, there is an energy to it that I think is, inclusive
For sure.
And so, and I feel like that's what we get at Alter Ego too. I mean,
well, you're going to get those sophisticated might be the wrong word, but like those more mature college kids that don't give a shit about like the McDenton's vibe on how we're getting trashed. They want a more dressed up city feel.
Yep.
Maybe they're from New York and they came down here for school, whatever.
Yeah.
You're going to get those kids that probably love this place.
Yeah. No sink or swim night.
Yeah.
Thirsty Thursday. Come get banded. $10 all you can drink.
Foam night. We bring foam night back.
Skull vodka with some soda, right? No. But yeah, I think Tampa is ripe for a larger version of this personally, like from a consumer standpoint, right? Like I think something with this idea on a larger scale, like Goodnight John Boy, would kill in Tampa.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked now, like if we did it again and we had the abilities, we would make it probably 2 to 3 times the size because the demand is there. Mm-hmm. So any developers watching, if they want to do that, let us know.
Shout out developers watching. I think, in a lot of ways, St. Pete beats Tampa with some of these concepts. Bar, restaurant scene, they have it pretty well developed. There's certainly a bigger scene in St. Pete than Tampa. You guys seeing that too?
I was going to ask, I want you to elaborate on that because I share a
hang
similar
out there a
opinion.
lot.
But,
Well, I was I had a business lunch over there a few months ago. I mean, I probably I don't go over too often, once a month, twice a month for lunch or like whatever. Maybe I have business or whatever. And as soon as we pulled up to the downtown, we were on Beach Drive, is that main road, right? On the park. And I was just looking around and I was joking with my associate. I was like, is the weather different over here? Like what's happening? It's like you have these beautiful parks and there's a little bit less of a business metropolitan vibe and more of an arts and culture feel. The restaurants are very unique and there's a shitload of them. Central Avenue is insane. You've got all these different bar concepts. There's country bars, Goodnight John Boy, retro. You've got maybe more hip-hoppy type stuff. And I immediately was like, okay, this is better. This is better. Like St. Pete's downtown has us beat. I don't think for long. I think in the long run we got them. But I will admit St. Pete has us, man.
You said it first. So
Yeah.
I mean, I completely agree.
It's hard to say as a Tampanian, but it's like
What I enjoy,
dude, there's no denying it's cool, man.
absolutely. And listen, again, we have all of our concepts in Tampa. Like, we bleed Tampa. I just feel like St. Pete doesn't try as hard to be so fancy. People embrace things. Whether you have a lot of money or a little money, people are still hanging out at the same places. And I think I would love for most people in Tampa to take a deep breath and just relax a little bit on the fanciness and trying so hard to showcase and flaunt I think there's it feels that way from our customer base at times, and I think that's why we are somewhat forced to pivot a little bit and make some adjustments. But we're hopeful that as we continue to grow as a city, it continues to diversify, and people feel comfortable coming to Alter Ego. And it is highly designed from an aesthetic perspective, but we never intended it for it to be like fancy, you know?
Right.
A couple weeks ago, I was in there. I was talking to two guests randomly. They had no idea who I was. I had no idea who they were. They were from St. Pete. They were here for a business dinner and spent the night at the JW. And they stopped in for their second time at Alter Ego. I asked them if they were having a good time. They're like, yeah, it's just so fancy. Why does everything gotta be so fancy in Tampa? Like, like, why can't it just be chill? And I don't necessarily disagree. You know, I think that Ash and Alter Ego is a good point of like the design maybe makes you feel that way, but we are the way we are. The way we dress is the way we go everywhere, whether it's overseas in Miami or in Tampa. So I would love to see a little bit more casualness.
But we still get that feedback at Rooster too, and I mean I think it, you know, the food is bolder, and I think asks of the guest to be a little to go on a journey with us, right? We just don't have a lot of traditional things. We have familiar things, but it's a different, the menu reads different as an example. But when you go to Rooster, the experience that you get is like the service is elevated, but we're playing music loud. Mm-hmm. It's not highly designed, right? It's more of a raw feeling. And so I think like we continue 11 years into this to just ask people to trust us and take a risk and come down and check it out. And Ash and Alter Ego, I think we do that same thing, but we go to St. Pete a lot. But St. Pete has the density though. So know, if you Uber there for the night and you're on Central, I mean, we have a couple drinks and hop on scooters to go up and down. So you can make a night out of it easier. In Tampa, it's like if you go to Water Street, you're probably hanging out on Water Street all night. Right. It's Seminole Heights, same thing. So
yeah, I remember one night we did downtown, Ybor, and Soho. This was a while ago, before kids and wife and all that. But I was with a buddy who was from out of town, and he was like, is this how it is every weekend? Like, you guys are just bouncing around in Ubers from here to there? Like, usually there's like a main street with a bar. That's Central Avenue in St. Pete. Yep. They're all the way past the interstate, way past the interstate now with concepts. Yep. Like crazy shit too. Like they'll be mixing like Mexican and Asian food together, like super, super unique stuff. Yep. I think it's cool we got both. Yeah. I think it's cool St. Pete's right over the bridge 20 minutes away.
Absolutely.
I mean, to have like such a metropolitan business focused city, I do believe is important as like the hub of a region. Yeah. And then the fact that you do have St. Pete like right over a bridge. I mean, you can see the downtown from downtown Tampa. Dude, that's awesome.
I wish we had a light rail or a late night ferry to get there and back. But
I know the ferry system is huge, man. If we could bring that back, that'd be a game changer.
Yeah. Do you think that some of the reason that we're discussing that we feel St. Pete is cool, or in your words, not mine, better, is because of some of the flexibility that they have through development in regards to parking, like we discussed earlier?
I don't mean the word progressive in an political mean, but they're more progressive in their thinking about their land use and their zoning, and so they've been quicker to make changes. I think that have allowed for some of that stuff in an easier fashion. They've taken Central Avenue and kind of gone, I think, up a few blocks and down a few blocks and made this like really cool corridor where they've increased density, and they're trying to do like the Sunrunner transit, and they've talked about rail one day where the Sunrunner is and all that. And I think they're bigger thinkers, and they're more progressive in their intention to create that exact type of city where it's like walkable and everything's right in one spot. A real city, a real downtown. I think Tampa has this maybe odd, more rural, suburban, conservative ideology in the city, which is, or maybe in the county that is opposing the city, which has caused stagnation and change. I think that's what's happening. St. Pete just has always had. They've always been further along in those ideas than Tampa.
I agree. And, the corridor that you explained certainly helps that, because, when we built Rooster, we went to Seminole Heights because we felt it was a more liberal mindset in regards to the restaurant scene. Greg and Michelle had already had Refinery going, and they were doing things that were outside of the box. Ella's was doing simple things, but still original, creative, and outside of the box. Independent was like the first German European style beer garden that we had that was also doing some really cool, simple food out of the cafe. So we're like, oh man, if you do something there, it's going to be more easily accepted. And we were right. But then the development quickly shifted to downtown, Water Street, Riverside Heights, Tampa Heights, and now we got Midtown. So we have like these pockets that are not connected by anything.
Yeah.
So there's no other way besides an Uber or a vehicle.
Yeah. I think one of the greatest things the city could do is connect all these different, Midtown, downtown, Seminole Heights. If we could connect everything back together, it would make for a much more fluid city. The problem is everything we talked about, the money and the voting and the political will and the public getting on board with it. And I think there's a lot of people that have enjoyed their way of life in South Tampa and in the county that probably don't like the change, don't like the growth, don't like the traffic. Every time a road is closed for some new project, they get frustrated.
Yeah.
I think those people should understand that there's a long-term vision at play. And things can't stay the same. If things stay the same, we all die. Like we all fail, man. Like if you guys don't have new people coming to your restaurants, you're not going to be doing very well. Exactly. And that's the same is true with any business. And so there is this like old Tampa versus new Tampa that's happening that I feel St. Pete might not have a stronger sense of. It's a little more tangible in Tampa. There's just these people that have lived south of Kennedy for a long, long time, and they're frustrated with the growth as they should be, because some of the growth they've received is insane. They put like thousands of apartments south of Gandy Boulevard with no transit, to your point, no transit between there and the grocery store, meaning all 300 people in one building can't go get milk and eggs. Oh, I forgot milk. Okay, you got to get in your car to go get it. That's a problem. Like that adds to the traffic. So those people should be frustrated, but they should also understand that all development is not bad. So they group like the bad policies, the bad development, and some of these negative externalities into one group. And so then all growth is bad. All development's bad. No, we don't want a rail line. That's more traffic and more this. And I don't know.
I think too, being sensitive to, like you said, old and new Tampa, I do think there's probably a sentiment of like people that look at the growth like if you're negatively impacted by, like if you feel like you're being priced out of something or you can't afford to live here anymore and you've lived here your whole life, like I certainly can appreciate their perspective on that, but I think it's the way the world is versus the way you want the world to be, right? And this is where we're at right now, so we're all trying to make the best of it. I think.
And I'm in that boat too. I mean, I just bought a house 2 months ago. I probably paid way more than I should have paid. It's so frustrating.
It's not going to go down though.
It's not going to go down.
It's not going to get any cheaper. So it's like,
Yeah.
It could level out in a very positive way. Again, if we can change the code, and if we can put density in areas that make sense, and maybe even preserve some neighborhoods that would make sense too, that have always been single family neighborhoods. Maybe you don't touch those, and you put growth in like the urban core and in the Heights. Like the Heights is not shot at growth at all. I think the people that live in Seminole Heights for the majority of that neighborhood kind of enjoy the growth. They enjoy these new concepts and these new people and how diverse it is. You go down a street in Seminole Heights and it's like Trump, Harris, rainbow flag, this flag, that flag. It's like, it's very, very cool, dude. It's very diverse. You have all these different people living in one place.
But still, don't park on my street. Like, they're still very much like that. I think,
that's true.
To your point, you say you live in a city, you kind of have to deal with that. You mentioned the Sunrunner too. I do wish there was a more aggressive crawl, walk, run approach. Like, to me, the Sunrunner was something they were like, we're going to, like, we want to improve traffic. We're going to get the Sunrunner done. They demonstrate to the public that it's a win. I know they had the issue with the fare and making it free and not charging. But I think when you can show people that their lives improve, and then that paves the way for to replace it with rail eventually, right? And so I wish we would take a more aggressive approach when it comes to things like that.
Yeah, 100%. It's like even Water Street is a good example, because when that was all proposed, there was a lot of people against it. You know, how is it going to change the city, and what is it going to do for traffic, and what is downtown going to look like? But then you go there now, and there's a million people enjoying it.
Yeah.
Drinking coffee, walking their dog, having their kid. It's like,
but there's still probably a million people frustrated with it still, you know?
Probably.
And I think that's just the way it is. I was with my family last night, and my mom and aunt always have a tendency to complain about the price of things right now. But I'm like, well, yeah, but when you were kids, you didn't have to wear seatbelts. You could smoke on planes. Like, everything always evolves and things change and prices go up. It's just like, it's the way of the world. So learn about it, what affects you locally, vote, and then impact the change that you want to see.
Yeah.
You know?
And be a champion for your city. Don't be a champion for your parcel of land that your house sits on. Yep. Right? I think understand that you're connected to so much more than you really are. You know, it's not just your lawn and your property and your fence. Like, you're hooked up to the grid. You know, you got the public sewer. You drive on the same roads as everyone else, right? Mm-hmm. And we're all a part of a society living together in one place. You don't have to live that way. You can go live out in the country. You know, we're Americans. You can do whatever you want to do. But when you live in a city, I believe you should have a mindset of a very community-oriented mindset. Yep. You have to think that way. If you don't think that way, if everyone didn't think that way, the whole thing would become to shit, right? The whole thing would be completely inefficient. And I believe that's kind of where we're at today, is there is this kind of old versus new mindset. The new generation's coming up. New generations live completely different than the old ones. And as the old generations are on their way out, they're clinging on and fighting for what they have. And the new generation is becoming older and more involved in politics and business and affecting the city. And you're going to have a fight, you know? That's just what it's going to be.
Yep. And I think
growing pains.
For sure. Bringing that full circle too, is that's something kind of we see at Alter Ego specifically, is you do see different people meshing and vibing, which is really, really cool to see in such a small space. So it's good to see that
people are talking.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Dialogue is so important. You know, let's not get closed off with technology. Let's get closer together. Yeah. That's dope. You guys have a little iteration of that in a concept. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, it is cool. It's cool to be a part of, and sometimes we'll post up on the weekends and just kind of watch it all happen and see people come in. It's pretty crazy. We'll see, you know, a couple thousand people come through that space per week right now is what our data is showing.
Wow. Is that more than you thought, or where are you at on in terms of what you guys predicted and where you're at?
I would say that Alter Ego is overperforming our performa, and Ash is slightly under currently.
Have you found a reason for that, or what are your thoughts?
Ash, as presented in its original state from a food and beverage offering perspective, I think is a little bit more progressive and culinarily artsy-fartsy than the guests want to dine at. They want something more pedestrian or mainstream.
Familiar.
Yeah, familiar. Yeah. Even on the menu verbiage, we do tests, you know, so I'll write a dish. For example, I'll write Zatar short ribs with Urfa roti, shkug mushrooms, and orange labna. No sales, right? You change it to short rib, roti bread, mushrooms. Pew.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're learning that, you know, and it's hard for me because I'm stubborn and I want it to me, like, that's just what the food is.
Don't you want to know what you eat?
Yeah, right? it's a Zatar flavored short rib with Urfa on the roti bread and shkug on the mushrooms. But we're learning that the newer demo, especially in Water Street, they don't prefer that. They want the bouillon burger and a martini.
Yeah.
And they'll pay $55 for it. They're not worried about that, but that's what they desire. So we're trying to find a healthy balance in that.
It kind of makes sense because you have Predolina, which is Mediterranean, and then you have Bouillon, it's French, but they've got the burger and stuff and all that. And I don't think Water Street has a very, diner's the wrong word, but just a straight flat food. You know what I'm saying? Like breakfast, lunch, dinner, late night.
Yeah, well, I mean, the addition, I think.
But you're saying that's what people are looking for, though? They're more looking for that kind of mainstream restaurant feel?
Yeah, they want more of an Olivia than they want. any analogy I would go to compare would be out of our state, you know, or in Miami, out of Tampa, really, you know. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would.
So the palate's not that forward and developed yet locally.
Well, I don't know if the palate is right. It's the way that they view the concept literally from a physical perspective, you know, like they're looking on the menu.
Yeah,
they're looking on the menu and they're like, what the hell is this? I'm not going there. They don't even I mean, we still to this day have guests at Rooster. We'll approach a table. Hey, if you guys got any questions, that's what we're here to do. Our staff knows everything inside and out, and the people will be on their phones Googling words instead of just having a conversation about it, because I'm sure they feel like they're on their heels. They feel a little bit uncomfortable. We don't want them to feel like that. We're just trying to offer something that is very organic to us. So
that's I never even thought about that. So it's not the food. The feedback is, hey, fantastic short ribs, but it's the way it's sold, like literally the way it's sold.
Or we'll see them look at the menu and then leave. They're so intimidated by what they see. I would imagine that they decide to go somewhere else as opposed to
that's something I never
try
thought
something new and take a journey. So yeah,
very interesting.
Yeah.
So that's something you guys are shifting and working through.
we are trying.
Yeah. We're learning that we have to, basically, you know. My stubbornness needs to chill out, and I need to put my entrepreneur brain on, because, you know, the like I said, if I think it's good and I think it's the best thing, but it doesn't sell, then that doesn't really support the business.
Yeah, it's that tightrope we talked about, balancing, you know, the flavor in the food with, hey, what can make us money to help sustain and grow and do what we want to do.
Yep.
At Alter Ego, we don't have an espresso martini on the menu because we don't have an espresso machine. So our beverage director, that's very important to him. An espresso martini should be based off of a proper pulled espresso, in his opinion.
Absolutely.
I completely agree. Your average consumer doesn't give a shit about that. Most people in Tampa aren't pulling a fresh shot of espresso for every espresso martini. He's staunch on that, but the guests don't care. So we develop a program where we can batch something that is up to his standard, and then we can offer it to the guests. So those are the things that we work on, and try to not lose a sense of self and our soul as PHG from a food and beverage perspective, but also not ostracize the guests, because that's not what we're in business for either.
No, and when someone is on Water Street, there is an expectation of higher end quality, just because that's where you are. Maybe you're staying at the Edition, or you're you know, if you got dinner at Ash and then you want to go to Alter Ego, or whatever the case may be, you're surrounded by a beautiful place, right? You kind of know it's high rent as a visitor. So I would assume you kind of expect that pulled espresso.
I agree, but I would be willing to say that the majority would put the price point as the level of quality, meaning if it's expensive, it must be good,
right?
As opposed to something just being good or not being good.
Yeah, like the freaking Edition that's like $30 for an espresso martini.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
But they sell
them all day long.
I know. I took a buddy there. We had 2 each. I got the bill at the end. I was like, what the fuck? Like $100. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, if an espresso martini's 15 or 12 or in that range, then you kind of, hey, tastes good. Great. If it's $25, you're like, all right, I want to see that espresso machine fired up.
Yeah.
Like,
and by the way, you're not drinking anything for $12 or $15 in Water Street. We have call drinks at Alter Ego. If you do a vodka and soda, vodka is a vodka, that would be $13. I think, well, through study, we are the most affordable in Water Street.
that's awesome.
Arguably, probably the most progressive. But again, still searching for that balance.
And the consumer again is struggling right now with, like, price is something that we get pushback a lot at all of our concepts. And you know, it's hard to educate the guest on. I mean, every single line item on our expense line has, you know, increased from people to cost of good on the you know, on the product, our construction cost to build out the space.
Right.
So, you know, to your point, if you go out in Water Street, you should expect to pay a premium, right? But I'm not sure the consumer is connecting those dots yet, at least based on, you know, reviews and public internet forums.
That's why we need podcasts like this.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate you guys for being so
up the food
honest
cost
about all
chart.
this different stuff. This is so interesting to me, and I know it's interesting to the people listening too. I mean, restaurateurs usually are always speaking about, oh, positive this and positive that. But for you guys to admit, like, hey, here's some challenges we're working through, dude, that's really cool.
Everybody looks good on Instagram, you know, but it's just not the reality of our world.
Right.
And we love it. Don't get me wrong. You know, like we're having open conversation, but we're not bitching. We love what we do. I do think that some of the pushback, though, from the guests is what prevents a lot of people from doing really cool, unique things in Tampa because they're worried it might not be embraced. So if you're going to put a couple mil on the line to open a place, and you know if you go a little bit more mainstream pedestrian and do what everybody else is doing, you're going to succeed. Or if you do what you really believe in, you're either your opportunity to fail is significantly greater, or your revenue is going to be cut by 50%. That scares a lot of people. PhG's down for that. A lot of people aren't down for that.
Yeah, that seems to be the real difference between you guys and other groups is you're so much more community and concept oriented versus investment oriented. Granted, the investments are so important, right? That has to be in the conversation.
Especially when you move into Class A buildings, you know, like we have now with Water Street. And that's why I often say to the partners, I'm like, well, joke's on us because they're doing 20 million and we're not, you know, but that's the risk that we willingly take to stay true to
it's a conscious
who
decision.
we are.
It's a conscious business decision to
risk.
go that route. And two, like Water Street, back to like the drink and the price conversation, the rent is expensive, right? The build out, all these things you're talking about. You probably would lose money if the drinks are $10, $12. Like there's almost no way to effectively reduce the price to appease a consumer. You almost have to work with the market. And if a consumer's pushing back, what do you do, man? I mean, I guess, you know, the espresso thing's an interesting point. That's a way to navigate those costs, right? I would imagine it's more efficient to have a batch versus fresh drawn, right? I mean, it's less time,
Mostly,
more prep.
Batching is not us compromising on quality. That's more of an efficiency piece for what we do.
Efficiency correlates to money, though.
Exactly.
You know?
100%.
Yep. I think you know I think the location should educate that it should be a signal to the customer around prices. I mean, there are levers we could pull. To your point, I mean, we could move to frozen product and put a couple fryers back there and compromise on quality, right? And still charge those same prices.
Hey, there's nothing worse for a customer when you show up to a place and you're paying a lot of money and it's disappointing.
Yep.
Talk about I'll never go back there again, right? Like that's something that really upsets consumers is when they're paying for something and then they have that perceived expectation and then boop, it's out the window and what is this frozen food that you're charging the same price for that restaurant that's farm to table? You know, you definitely can't cross that line.
Yep. I think our ethos sometimes get in the way too because we don't buy frozen, we don't buy low end, we don't buy commodity, we don't buy bleached eggs, we don't use those products. So you're never going to see a commodity egg in our cooler. We use local farm eggs from Lake Meadows Farm. It costs me probably 3 times as much. Your average consumer probably doesn't give a shit about that.
Right.
But that goes back to the education process that we're invested in, you know? So, I mean, like you said, you know, you go to Europe and people seem to be less obese because they have better access to walkability and proper food. In America, we're allowed to sell food that you're not even allowed to sell in other countries.
Imagine that. It's illegal.
Yeah. Literally. Because
Crazy.
it's so bad for you. But it seems as if people don't really mind that, you know? So putting your flag in the ground and standing on that hill is sometimes daunting.
And probably oftentimes more important than anything else. More important than, hey, we made an extra 10, 15, 20, 30%, whatever it may be. Like standing on that hill is more important than buying the frozen food, taking the shortcut route, and doing what everyone else does.
As long as people care, there are enough people that care.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your customers and your patrons are the most important part of this whole thing, right? The people that have followed you and loved you guys for the last decade you've been in business, right? Those regular people that always come in. Those are your number ones. They keep the ship afloat, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. We're super grateful for that.
Well, how long have we been rolling? I feel like
it's like 20 minutes.
Yeah, only 20 minutes or so. Thank you guys so much for coming on. This was an awesome conversation. I'm glad we touched on that development piece too.
Yeah. I really enjoy your show. I think you just all the different topics that you cover, but I mean, it's really all about the city and Yeah, I enjoy it, and I'm glad we were able to join you.
Thanks, man.
We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, guys. All right, to get in touch with you guys, are you guys on Instagram? Give yourselves a shout out. How can people find you?
On Instagram, I'm at Ferrell Alvarez. Not really on Facebook too much these days. Instagram's about the only platform I use.
Yep, on Instagram at Chon Nguyen. We're at properhousegroup.com. That links to all of our other concepts.
Properhousegroup.com. All right. Thank you guys again.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, everybody. See you next week. Hey, guys, if you want to watch episodes just like this one, make sure to click right here to view the rest of our full episodes. And also make sure to subscribe by clicking right here. Thank you for watching.